Thanks again for joining us here on Spot Radio. I'm your host, Matt Danley. We are here for the Super Bowl special tonight. We got a great panel. We got journalists from each of the Super Bowl contestants. We got Jake Arthur, Charles Rawrig, and Joseph representing our Pro Football Spot journalist panel, and we're also with Jake Mackey, who's representing the Patriots today, and Ken Kazarowski, who's going to be representing the Seahawks. So, with for no further ado, we're going to start right now. We want to give these two guys their chance, their 2 minutes, their 2 cents, and see what they can give us about their team. Why we're going to choose one or the other. We'll start with you, Ken. What do you think? What do you think you guys got here? The Hawks, Pats. This is probably two of the best matchups that you are one of the best matchups between the two best teams that you could ask for in the Super Bowl. Quite honestly, tell me why the Hawks are going to win.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a great matchup. It's one I've been looking forward to ever since the playoffs started. And when I look at this matchup, it's gonna be between Tom Brady and the passing attack against the Legion of Boom. And if any secondary can limit the effectiveness of Tom Brady's passing attack, it's the Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom. All these guys are intelligent, fast, and tough. The corners perform bump and run tactics, and then they can drop into their zone coverage in a blink of an eye, and it's very efficient, and everybody knows each other's responsibilities. You'll see pre-snap, all the guys are communicating with one another. They all know their responsibilities, and they also know where everyone else is supposed to be. So very rarely are you going to see a miscommunication happen between all the members of the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to be a very tight windows that are going to be available for the slightest of time for Tom Brady to exploit. Now, I have tons of respect for Tom Brady. He's one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my 20 years of living on this planet, but I think the Seahawks secondary is just too good. And one of the options that the Patriots might want to try to exploit in the Seahawks is using Rob Gronkowski because he's just a freak of nature, just a matchup nightmare for most secondaries. Luckily for the Seahawks, they've got some linebackers who are great in coverage, among them KJ Wright. He frequently drops back in zone coverage and does a fairly good job. And then Bam Bam, Cam Chancellor, the hard-nosed hitting safety for the Seattle Seahawks. He's got the size and the speed at 6'3", around 230 pounds. He can stay with Rob Gronkowski. He can jam him at the line of scrimmage. And that actually brings me to my next point. If the Seahawks are really going to win this game, it comes down to disrupting Tom Brady's time within the pocket. The Patriots are known for that quick strike ability that Tom Brady has, getting in a quick rhythm with his receivers. But the Seahawks secondary can really disrupt that. They're very aggressive off the line. They use that bump and run coverage. The jamming of the receivers is going to throw off that passing attack of the Patriots, and that's going to eventually lead to a Seahawks victory. Defense wins championships.
Do how are they gonna throw off Brady's rhythm?
Well, it starts with the corners and the linebackers who are lining up against these receivers off the line. They're going to jam the receivers for a second or two, and it'll make the receivers have to take a couple seconds just to begin their route. By that time, the Seahawks secondary is already back into their almost impenetrable zone defense. Very tough for any quarterback to beat. And if they get a couple seconds advantages at the line of scrimmage, then there's virtually no way that Tom Brady can make mincemeat out of the Legion of Boom.
If they're running their single high that they run so often and actually so well, of course, with Cam, are they going to bring him up and try to bump on Gronk? And if so, that's gonna leave them with outside of a nickel like Burley that they have, and a host of others actually, is that going to leave them vulnerable to anything past 15 yards downfield?
It might. You've seen Cam Chancellor, if you watch some film, he will go to the line of scrimmage to jam some guys, and he'll be in the intermediate zone. They like using Earl Thomas as that captain in the center field deep, just because he has such great instincts and he's so fast. He reads the quarterback's eyes really well. So the Seahawks don't really feel vulnerable when they have just one safety deep. If Cam Chancellor handles the intermediate stuff, Earl Thomas has got downfield covered. And it's also a testament to the corners, Byron Maxwell and Richard Sherman, who can really get to that second level and stick with the receivers.
Okay. All right. Well, that's Ken, and he's given his 2 minutes of fame there for the Hawks, and albeit it's not something that everybody's not familiar with. Everybody knows about the Seahawks defense, Marshawn Lynch, Russell Wilson's escapability and his pocket awareness, and so on and so forth. Um, Jake Mackey, we're going to bring you in. He's repping the Patriots tonight for our Super Bowl show. Jake, where are you standing, man? I know where your heart's at. I just want to know where you think the Patriots' heart's at.
All right, so those great points there by Ken. Obviously, all these last weeks, all you hear is about Legion of Boom, Legion of Boom, Legion of Boom, Seahawks defense, best in the past 10 years, which I agree with a lot of it. They're phenomenal defense. Pete Carroll has always been able to make a great secondary, even when he was a coach of the Patriots back in the 90s, Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, all those guys. But when it comes down to it, I think the Super Bowl, the most physical team will win. And obviously, you look at this game as a fan from not one of these two teams, you're going to say Seahawks are a more physical team. But the Patriots can they can have production on offense because their offense is so versatile, and you've seen it in so many different ways this year. They've had, against Baltimore, Tom Brady, they got on his back. He threw him to the AFC Championship game. This past game against the Colts, they ran the ball over them. They ran the ball over them against the Colts the first time. They've been able to go. They've won games on defense. So I think in this game in particular, they're gonna have to establish the run because I don't think they'll be able to throw the ball too effectively. So I think you go come out of the gate, 6-man offensive line, get Cam Fleming on the end. You should run it to the edge. I mean, the thing about the Seattle is they have a phenomenal secondary. But you look at their defensive line, they're small. That is not a big defensive line. They can get after the quarterback, but I think we all watched the NFC Championship. That offense didn't put up so many points, but they had their way with that defense. Aaron Rodgers on one leg took them up and down the field constantly. They left. I just watched the whole game today on film. They left probably about 3 touchdowns on the board in that game in that
Yeah,
first half
especially in the
alone.
first quarter. Yeah.
Yeah, they got to the 5-yard line twice and they couldn't put it in the end zone. I don't think that's going to happen against the Patriots. Even if if the Patriots are going to try to throw the ball, what I think is going to happen is they're going to try to man up Cam Chancellor on Gronkowski when they get inside that red zone, based on the film I've seen. And that is a win for the Patriots 9 times out of 10. You don't go man-to-man in the red zone on a 6'7" Rob Gronkowski. But when it comes down to it, in this one, I don't think Rob Gronkowski is going to have a huge impact in the passing game as he will in the run game. What I saw from the Packers did in the NFC Championship game, they had Andrew Corus a lot come up and fill the middle because that's where the Seahawks are most vulnerable on defense because they got a small defensive line. And he'd come up, he'd fill the middle. And Andrew Corus isn't a big guy. Rob Gronkowski, he's coming up. They do that a lot with him. He comes up the middle. That's going to make some room for LeGarrette Blount. I think he can have a pretty solid day. And I think the Patriots' defense can really hold the Seahawks to limited points. Bill Belichick's defenses has always been able to take away your number one target. And the Seahawks' really only big weapon on offense is Marshawn Lynch. I think the Patriots, they've had a good run defense all year, especially when that's the team's bread and butter. They're going to be able to take care of that. Jamie Collins, phenomenal linebacker, very athletic. He'll be able to keep a spy on Russell Wilson all day, so he can't get outside the pocket. They did the same thing against Luck, Rodgers. In the secondary, they don't really have that guy that can take the top off your defense. Talking about the Seattle passing game, I think you could go. I think they're gonna come zone out of the gate. That's what Belichick likes to do with a team that doesn't have that one guy. Even if you're gonna go man to man, you put Revis on Baldwin. That's gonna make them one dimensional. I mean, if they want to have Jermaine Kearse beat us, I'll take that because I don't think they can do that. You put Kyle. I think you can put Kyle Arrington on Jermaine Kearse really because they match up so well physically.
Right.
And Brandon Brown is a big guy. You could probably put him on the tight end. And that's where you can take Patrick Chung, strong safety who gets exposed in pass coverage, bring him down in the box. He's a great run stuffer, make him like a more athletic linebacker because you're really going to need all the run stuff you need in this game. Get some big beef in the middle with Saliga and Wilfork or Alan Branch, whoever you want up there. I just think
Here's my one question, especially with the Hawks offense against the Pats defense. You feel like they have to run like the Hawks have to run, but or I'm sorry, the Pats have to run between the tackles to be effective. You think that for so much, but then you have their linebackers that are so well in the gaps, and Earl Thomas that comes up and run support so well. Uh, the biggest problem is trying to differentiate, in my opinion, for them to try and differentiate to where do they want to run inside or outside of the tackles. Outside of the tackles is where the Seahawks get a lot of their momentum, tackling laterally and whatnot. So you want to get as much positive yardage as possible on each snap, and whether it's 2 yards or 3 yards. Does that present a bigger challenge for them, or is it simply just to just beat them down and run up the middle on their defensive tackles?
Yeah, I think you got to beat them down because, like I said, physicality wins in the Super Bowl. Attack them. They don't have. They're not. They're a great team. I mean, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. I see one in that middle of the defense, which is I think the Patriots. Eddie Lacy had a day with them. LeGarrette Blount. You look at them. They're very similar running backs. When you put them in pads, it's hard to tell the difference. They're both big guys. They're both great at making cuts. If they don't see that one hole, they cut it, find another one. I think you get James Devlin, Gronkowski, get wham blocks going up the middle. You can take advantage of that small defensive line of the Seahawks. I did contemplate thinking like taking it to the outside on counters and maybe testing Richard Sherman, see, because he's not a great run stuffer. But Earl Thomas and Bobby Wagner and all those guys, they cover a lot of ground. So I don't really want to get them going their momentum on the outside. I just think that the Patriots need to run the ball, and that'll start to set up the passing game. The passing game isn't going to be past 10 yards, I really don't think. Seahawks between 11 and 20 yards, completion rate's 36.6. That's ridiculous. But luckily for Patriots, Tom Brady's forte is the short dink and dunk passes. They got Julian Edelman, they got Danny Amendola, Shane Vereen. Those three guys will be the keys to the offense. I think they're going to try and neutralize Edelman because obviously he's the most effective short pass catcher on the Patriots. But I think Amendola, he's been in the game plan a lot more the past few weeks. I think he can really burst onto the scene this week. Same thing with Shane Vereen because he might have a good matchup with the linebacker.
Okay, well, we've gotten their takes, gentlemen. We're going to start with Joe Cesaro. What do you think, man? I'm going to give you a chance to ask each Ken and Jake a question or two yourself, and see where they can go with that to get your vote for the Super Bowl.
All right. Let's start with Ken. Ken, Russell Wilson is 10-0 versus Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. He's actually got it versus Tom Brady already and beat him. What is it about Russell Wilson that he's just dominating these Super Bowl winning quarterbacks?
I think he has such a good ability to improvise and think on his feet outside the pocket. Unquestioned ability. When things break down, he knows how to make something happen. He's also very smart with the ball, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. If he realizes something's broken down and nothing else can be taken away from it, he'll get rid of it and come afresh with a new play. But it's all just not on Russell Wilson, and you got to give credit to this run-first offensive scheme that the Seahawks have. The zone blocking has just been phenomenal ever since Tom Cable came in, coaching this offensive line. These guys are a cohesive unit, and Marshawn Lynch really helps complement Wilson, not just with running game, but with zone read options. It makes them even more formidable of a duo. And so with all that around him and Russell Wilson's natural ability to escape the pocket and find ways to make big plays happen, those really pay dividends against championship-winning quarterbacks.
Okay. Well, I mean, they lost their big playmaker, Percy Harvin. Actually last Super Bowl he had more rushing yards than Marshawn Lynch. And it's pretty safe to assume that Revis Island is going to be shutting down Doug Baldwin. Who do you think is going to have to step up for Seattle in the passing game, receiving game, for them to come out victorious here?
I kind of go between two guys, Jermaine Kearse for one, and tight end Luke Wilson. Wilson's kind of an underrated guy, not really known for his blocking, but he has solid hands. And the Seahawks have really been utilizing him in the play-action pass. Somehow he sneaks behind linebackers and safeties, as we saw with that 80-yard play against the Arizona Cardinals over a month ago. But Kearse is a good downfield threat. As we know, he's not great with the short to intermediate throws. They just bounce off his hands and end up in the Packers' hands. But downfield, he finds just enough space and makes those big plays happen. You look at the past year, his biggest catches have been downfield throws. The NFC Championship game on 4th down and the game-winning touchdown score against the Packers in the NFC Championship game. So those two guys really have to be in tandem, successful with finding just enough room, just a little gap here and there to give Wilson some solid options.
Okay, fair enough. The last question: you think Marshawn Lynch retires at the end of the season, regardless of the outcome?
I don't know. I think he's been tearing it up since he came to Seattle. It'd be hard for me to imagine him stopping it, especially when the Seahawks have such a good thing going. And if they can't renegotiate contracts, I mean, Russell Wilson's going to have a big payday coming up soon. I think other teams are definitely going to be interested in Lynch, and he'll want to stick around.
Yeah, I agree. All right, over to Jake. Jake, the Brady Belichick era, they have an unbelievable record, 180 and 55. What is it about these two that just makes them gel so much? And they're constantly, it seems every year they're in it. What is it?
I mean, I think you got to start first at the head coach. I mean, the guy, he can take his game plan ability is so he can take guys from anywhere and put them on one team and just have them they gel so well. Any players he's taken, he knows that if he puts a defense together that can't get the job done, he's got his quarterback on the other side of the ball that can take him as far as they need to go. Those two just have always worked so well together because I think Brady knows Belichick took a chance on him in the 6th round. Yeah, those two, they just work real well together in cohesion. I mean, they're both different sides of the ball. I really, watching the Patriots for as long as they have, Belichick I don't think has so much to do on offense, but I think Brady, he really takes control of that side of the ball, Belichick defensively, and it just works in cohesion really well.
Yeah, I mean, they say defense wins championships, offense wins games. What do the Patriots have to do to get over the #1 defense in the league?
Get tough. Get tough. That's what you got to do in the Super Bowl. You got to get tough, and that starts with running the ball. That's going to start with getting 6 offensive linemen out there with your biggest target, Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski will make his impact in this game in the run game. What goes so underrated about him, he's a phenomenal run blocker. He's going to set that edge. The edge is not big for the Seattle. I mean, they're great pass rushers, but they're not that big. I think he'll set the edge. LeGarrette Blount, big back, he's coming at you. They'll hit you. You get that run game going, they're going to start doing that play action, get to 87. That you get toughness going in the passing game, toughness going in the run game. They start getting that first downs, moving the ball. That's where they need to get tough to score points. I mean, they're gonna have to kick a lot of field goals because Seattle just doesn't give up points. But you're gonna have to take the points where you can get them.
Okay. Last question, Jake. Let's say Patriots win. Darrelle Revis is the MVP. Do they pick up his option for $20 million next year?
Yes. I'm hearing stories. I think it's Ian Rappaport say that the Patriots haven't ruled out the $20 million option. I wouldn't doubt it for a second if they picked that up. Bill Belichick seems to love him. Revis seems to really like his time here. And I don't see I think Bill Belichick, he learned. He got a keep to leave 2 years ago. He knows that when you get that, he takes whoever he wants, undrafted free agents, whoever, and puts them in the defensive line. He did that for a while in the secondary. He knows as far away you get from the line of scrimmage, it becomes more about skill. And he knows that when that far outside, you need real talent at the cornerback position because we saw it 2008 through 2011. They were horrible at the secondary, and especially cornerback. And when they start to get talent in there, especially now, you just see it transforms the entire defense. So I don't think he has a choice. He has to bring Revis back. I think he knows that.
All right, good stuff, guys.
All right, hey, good stuff from all of you. All right, Jake Arthur, you're up. You got questions for both Ken and Jake. Who you want to start with?
Yeah, I'll start with Ken. When I've watched the Seahawks this year in times when they're struggling, it seems that the opponent's running offense is doing a real good job. Kansas City and Jamal Charles kind of comes to mind. But it seems like in the second half, since they've been on their winning streak, that Bobby Wagner has kind of been the difference. Is that the case?
Absolutely. When Bobby Wagner was going out with an injury, you could see a noticeable gap in the ability of that run defense to stop the ball up the middle. Bobby Wagner's so good being that middle linebacker. He'll close in an open gap if the running game has one in the first level, and he'll clog it up right away. When he's out there, there's no one really that can fill that void, and it hurt them against teams like Kansas City. But as for the Patriots running game, I mean, you talk about Jamal Charles and even DeMarco Murray, who also led the Cowboys in beating the Seahawks. Those two types of runners are a little more elusive, and the Seahawks are really good at tackling, but when you have smaller, more elusive backs who can make quick cuts, it's just they can't really get to him as fast. LeGarrette Blount's a very good downhill runner, but the Seahawks, with very capable tacklers like Bobby Wagner clogging up the middle, I fail to see how they can run all over the Seahawks as much as Jamal Charles did.
Okay. Another question I've got is, 75% of the Legion of Boom gets all the attention, but how good is Byron Maxwell? You never hear about him at all.
Yeah, Byron Maxwell's really underrated. Last year when all the suspensions were going down and drug violations by Walter Thurman and Brandon Browner, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I mean, this guy's a 6th-round pick out of Clemson, but he's a tough-nosed guy, and the thing I really like about him is his closing speed. Some guys might get a little bit of separation with him, but downfield throws, he'll close on them in a second. Very tight coverage guy. Maybe looks a little undersized, but he makes the most out of any matchup he's going up against. And I think that the fact that the other 75% of the Legion of Boom is so high-profiled, I think he likes all the throws that come his way. It's made him a very much improved corner since he first came into the starting role. He's just gotten better with every single game, but that closing speed is really what sets him apart.
Okay, I got one more quick one for you. The Colts dealt the Seahawks Marcus Burley earlier in the offseason for a 6th-rounder. I feel like the Colts are probably going to feel that one in the long run, especially since they let go of Burley's replacement, Luchez Purifoy. How's Burley been doing there in Seattle?
Well, when he was filling in for the injured nickel Jeremy Lane, he held his own. Nickel packages aren't always the dominant force for the Seattle Seahawks. It's just that starting 4. They like to keep those 3 linebackers out there. So you won't really see a lot of sub packages with Burley in there, especially now that Lane is back in the lineup. Just a more capable nickel guy. But under the tutelage of all these defensive coordinators and cornerbacks, coaches, and even when you got guys like Richard Sherman and Byron Maxwell mentoring you, I think you're right. Marcus Burley is going to turn out into a pretty solid kid.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ken.
Sure.
Jake, now to you. I've kind of thinking here about the Patriots offense. It reminds me a lot of what Denver ran last year, especially when their run game was clicking. No Sean Marino was, really churning it out. And then the Denver, with all their passing weapons, they still use the short passing game quite a bit. Do you think that's what they're still going to try to do? Or, do you think Seattle's domination over Denver last year might change their minds?
I think they're going to try and go the short passing game for sure, but that's we're going to have to make because Seattle their short passing defense isn't phenomenal. They really get their bread and butter from 11 yards and out. They're phenomenal at stopping the deep half, intermediate routes. You get Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, Shane Vereen going, like I said earlier. That's where the Patriots are going to move the ball passing-wise. They take advantage of that 10-yard cushion right there. They're going to have to work their way to first downs. They have to go 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. That's where they have to move the ball in this game.
Okay. And my last one for you is, initially I thought Seattle would have this, but when I got to thinking of this more, I don't think Seattle's going to have much success through the air at all. And so obviously New England will be keying on Marshawn Lynch. Russell Wilson runs the ball pretty well, but what can Seattle do to actually beat New England's defense?
They're going to have to run the ball. I mean, the Patriots have shown at times this year that they haven't been able to stop the run. But that's basically when they've been trying to take away other assets of the offense. Like, Bill Belichick tries to take away your number one threat. For example, against Baltimore, they really want to take away those big plays that they would have with Torrey Smith and Steve Smith. So they kind of just let Justin. They said, okay, beat us with Justin Forsett, which they almost did. Justin Forsett ran all over them. I don't think that's going to happen this week because I think they know Marshawn Lynch that's who they're going to key on. So I think they're going to be able to stop him. But then again, he has the ability to just. You think you have him stopped, you stop him the whole game, and then he'll just rip off a couple tackles, then he'll go for 60 yards or whatever it is. And then I also, on the other hand, think that the Patriots have been good at stopping mobile quarterbacks, but Russell Wilson, he just seems like, I won't say lucky, but he moves around and just throws that ball up there, and someone comes down with it. It's ridiculous.
Like the 2-point conversion.
that. And that last play of the game where they didn't just decided in sudden death, let's just not play a safety over the top. We're just going to play man-to-man. That was real smart.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jake.
No problem.
Okay, got a couple more great questions. All right, Charles, you still with us, buddy? There he is. All right, Charles, it's your turn to ask both Jake and Ken a couple questions. Who you gonna go to first?
So hold on one second. I'm trying one last outlet. Doesn't work. So I got 5 minutes of batter.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay.
Sorry, bud. I would have gotten to you earlier if I'd have known that you were the one running short on life.
I got a couple thoughts before I ask some questions.
Okay.
With the Cardinals, I get the fortunate ability of watching Seattle twice a year. But biggest thing I've noticed that no team has really done to attack Seattle is they'll try to run the ball because they try to take away Seattle's secondary strength. But when the big shot comes, because you don't get many against Seattle, they don't take advantage of it. Case in point, Green Bay last week, not going for it on 4th and 1. And I want to know really, are the Patriots going to take that shot, or are they going to go with the Mike McCarthy game plan?
They'll take the shot. It's Bill Belichick. He's not going to mess around in this game. You get down to the goal line, and it's 4th and goal at the 1-yard line. I don't think Bill Belichick's going to say, hey, let's kick the field goal twice. I think you got the size on the Patriots offense. You get the jumbo set out there. You get 6 guys on the offensive line. You get James Devlin in the backfield. Get Gronkowski coming in motion, and then get your big 6-foot, 250-pound running back going right through the middle. I think they're going to take that shot.
Another thing I want to know is the last few teams to win in Seattle were Arizona and Dallas. Now, obviously, this game isn't in Seattle. It's in Arizona. But both teams that day, Arizona, when they won the game, they ran the ball 43 times. Is New England prepared to run the ball that much?
Yeah, I mean, this offense, I never know what's this whole season. It's just been a toss-up. It's been a coin flip. This offense is so versatile. Bill Belichick said multiple times they can win games so many different ways, and they have all season. I think if they get good field position in the game, they're going to try and run the ball and get good yards. It might not even be LeGarrette Blount. Could be Shane Vereen with those short passing game, which they might use as a run game. Try to go short, quick passes to Shane Vereen, little counter plays, and then pound it with LeGarrette Blount. Good balance.
Okay, one last thing for me, because my computer's about to die, and I want both you and Ken to answer this, because you're both on the flip side. What does Brandon Browner bring for the Patriots? And transversely, is there anything from the Seahawks he can let them in on?
Well,
Go ahead.
I think Brandon Browner is good for a couple pass interference calls. A very aggressive guy. I like the intensity that he brings, but sometimes it backfires on him. Not to mention the discipline abuse. But very physical corner, almost a shutdown guy. His frame is huge. You don't get that a lot in corners. Nowadays they're more about a little slightly undersized and all about that speed and closing speed. So you have a really unique guy in Brandon Browner, and I don't know how much he can tell the coaching staff about the Legion of Boom. Just from experience, they all know where each other are supposed to be. That's perhaps it. They're very well prepared, so it's hard to find a weakness, especially a year removed.
Yeah, I think he brings nastiness to the Patriots defense. Like, they haven't had that in a long time. I agree, the pass interference calls, they're so frustrating. But the thing is, in a game like this, which I'm hoping the refs do, which they usually do in the Super Bowl, those flags tend to get held in a lot of the times. In big games like this, the refs usually let them play in the Super Bowl. The way this season has dictated so far, I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I have confidence that it could happen, but in big games like this, physicality wins. Brandon Brown is a very physical player. I don't think he's going to bring much insight to the Patriots to let them know what the Seahawks are doing. I mean, it's a different year. It's a completely different offense, completely different defense. But yeah, I think he brings a good physicality matchup for the Patriots. He's not a great cover guy, but he's good if the matchup is right for him.
And last thing, since I do got like a minute left, last year the Seahawks did a good job of eliminating Wes Welker in the Super Bowl. How will Julian Edelman differentiate himself and not get shut down like Welker did?
I think it's going to come down to what his matchup is. If it's Jeremy Lane, I think Julian Edelman can have a day because I don't think Jeremy Lane's that good of a cornerback. I think the matchup's really good for him. He's great. If they jam him at the line, he can get scrappy. He gets scrappy with anybody. I love Julian Edelman as a player. I think they're going to thrive off those quick slant routes and those quick out routes that he's so good at. And he can go downfield if you need him to. I don't think they're going to have that ability to in this game, but really what it comes down to, Wes Welker was a tough guy. He dropped the ball a lot because I think he'd get hit and then get afraid. But Julian Edelman, he's scrappy. He'll get the crap kicked out of him, go right back out there, catch the ball again, and get the crap kicked out of him again and get right back up. So I think it's really going to come down to toughness. I think Julian Edelman's a tougher player.
And then obviously Ken will be able to chime in with me on this one. Is New England prepared for an NFC West defense? It's a defensive level that's on a whole nother level. And Denver last year looked shell-shocked in the first minute of the game. Will New England be ready in those first few minutes?
Well, I think the first 2 minutes of the Super Bowl are always telling. I mean, something crazy always happens, whatever year it is. In NFC West defense, that's a great point. I mean, they're all phenomenal out there. I mean, they come at you, they beat you up physically. They've played a lot of good defense this year. I mean, the only thing I can really compare to that is Detroit. I don't think, I mean, it's not nearly as good as that defense, obviously. They were the number one ranked defense.
And Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo, they played them once, really, because the second time they rested all their players. But they played Detroit, who was the number one ranked defense at the time, and the Patriots hung 34 on them like it was nothing. Obviously, different circumstances. I mean, you can really just flip it and say Detroit had a great front seven, and Seattle has a great secondary. But I think they'll be ready for the task. I mean, they got Tom Brady, so I mean, they have a good guy pass the ball. I think they'll be able to run the ball because I mean, they've been a tough offense this year physically.
All right, thanks guys. I'm out. My computer's dying.
Hey, thanks, Charles.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I've got my questions as well. I got a couple to add to, and thanks for Charles for sitting in. I apologize that I didn't get to him any sooner. Um, I'm gonna go, Jake. I'm gonna start with you while you're on. My two questions for you are basically the first one is something that has people maybe may have forgotten about the Patriots, and that's their special teams play and how integral that's been so often in their wins. And I know you must have been chomping at the bit to talk about this because this is the one thing that they haven't really done much of lately in the playoffs, and I feel like they're due. Is is their special teams, first of all, does their special teams score? Excuse me, and second of all, is that the difference in the game?
I don't think the special teams will score. I think it's going to come down to the field position that they get because that's really what's come down to this year. Is they've been able to get really good field position on their punt returns and the kick returns. Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, their coverage has been phenomenal. That's what I think it's going to come down to in this one because against a defense like Seattle, it's going to come down to how well your field position is so you don't have to work. Because if you have to work from the 20 down the whole game, you don't have a chance. But if you can get the ball at the 45, the 50, and you have short fields, I'll take 3 points against the Seahawks defense. And Julian Edelman has been, I think, the best punt returner in the NFL. He's phenomenal at just getting good field position. And Danny Amendola. And the Seahawks, Patriots are fifth-ranked special teams. Seahawks 19. Their coverage is phenomenal. If you can keep the Seahawks pushed back, you got to force them to punt to you. You get good field position, and it goes from there.
Another thing that I have noticed as well, and I mean, I don't know if it's just a Colts matchup thing that they need to do this, but I feel like it works and it has its place, especially against a lighter defensive front, especially in the middle for the Seahawks. But does that unbalanced line come back in the Super Bowl, and is that in any way key for their matchups? And I'm not talking about the parity little 17 different guys that are eligible and the other guys that aren't. Not that I'm talking where they've got the two and the tackle's the outside and he's the guy who's eligible, and is that key? And does that also help their matchups a little bit for the one side? Because typically they're going to have Gronk on that unbalanced light side.
Yeah, I think it's going to help him in this game because they got to get physical with him. I think you got to get big. You match strength to strength in this one. You get a big offensive line. You get Gronk going in the run game. I think they got to run it at the weak side. You just pound. I think they're going to be able to pound it with the jumbo set right there with the 6 offensive linemen. Get Gronk going. I think it'll work to their favor in this game, seeing how Seattle's front 7 is so light.
Okay. And I'm gonna jump over to you, Ken. I'm gonna try and keep this here within the next couple minutes. No hurry though on your answers, and then I'll have something kind of for both of you, just a kind of a thought. Um, is there any way that after if they do bring up Cam Ken to bump Gronkowski on the line of scrimmage, are they gonna sit Wagner on him in a zone? To his side, I guess, not necessarily on him, or are they going to try to bump and then cover him with Wagner?
I'm not even sure if Wagner's going to be a focal point in taking out Gronk. They like keeping Wagner in the middle just in case it's a draw or a straight up run. You might see a lot more of KJ Wright after Cam bumps Gronk at the line. Wright's probably their best cover linebacker, is able to stick with some slot receivers actually, and so he should have a decent time against Rob Gronkowski. But of course, he'll still have that help at the line of scrimmage from Cam.
There was the interception from DeQuell Jackson in the AFC Championship game. That is a interception that is only an interception because it was misplaced ball from Brady. If Brady throws that another 2 foot in the air, nobody else can reach it but Gronk, and that's typically where I mean I'm assuming that's where he meant to throw it to begin with. I can't imagine he meant to throw a back shoulder fade through DeQuell Jackson's helmet. Um, is on the flip side of that, Ken, are the Seahawks receivers going to be just as key to this? And I'm going to tell you why I think that they're so underrated. They don't have the biggest names. They don't have the biggest yards after catch. They don't have that one guy that everybody wants to talk about in their arsenal at the wide receiver position. But they are some of the most aggressive wide receivers, in my opinion, that I've seen as far as tracking the ball in the air and high pointing it as well. I think that it's a very underrated aspect of their passing game. Um, I just don't see too many people attack the football in the air the way that the Seahawks wide receivers do, which kind of makes me wonder why they're not getting a little more time uh, being talked about. Is that going to be the key in the game? Is it going to be and come down to the wide receivers, maybe simply because it's not somebody that everybody's talking about for the Seahawks?
Yeah, well, the Patriots are already going to come into this game wanting to stop Marshawn Lynch, so the Seahawks have to present some kind of balanced attack. And yeah, like you said, I love their aggressiveness off the line. That I mean, they're almost dirty in the way they go after it. And the thing I really like about them is if a play should break down, they're very good at finding that open space in a zone when everything breaks down and everyone's trying to track where Russell Wilson's going. And they're very good at just finding that little seam. And Wilson, with his good downfield vision, is able to find them. And like you said, they go up and attack the ball. They're not really tall either. I believe 6'1", 6'2", Jermaine Kearse is their tallest receiver. But they are very aggressive and
Really good leaps.
absolutely, they're going to be an asset.
Um, all right, this is kind of for both of you, and I'll start with you, Ken, while I'm in here with you. Who's your no-name MVP of the game for the Seahawks? Nobody's talking about him. Nobody's said a word about him all week. Who is it? Who's the guy that's going to have the biggest impact in the game?
I like KJ Wright, and I know he got a little bit of media attention when he responded to Brandon Browner's comments about going after people's evident injuries.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't really count that as having complete media attention because it's not focused on the game. But as I mentioned several times before, KJ Wright's a very good coverage linebacker, and he's got a big assignment in Rob Gronkowski. I can envision him baiting Tom Brady into trying to find Gronk on a seam and Wright picking it off. Maybe not necessarily for a pick six like we saw with Malcolm Smith, but he could make that one key play that results in an awesome turnover that the Seahawks use to get that key touchdown late in the game. So I'll go with KJ Wright.
Okay. Same question for you, Jake. Who do you got on the Pats that nobody's talking about?
Patriots fans are probably gonna call me crazy, but I'm going Danny Amendola,
Hmm.
based on the fact that they're gonna try to take away Gronkowski, obviously, as they should. Edelman's probably gonna get a tough matchup. That's gonna leave Brandon LaFell's probably gonna get a tough matchup. Probably with Sherman, that's what it's gonna look like. That's gonna leave Danny Amendola on lighter coverage. He's been getting really involved in the game plan the last 2 weeks. I don't think he's not gonna have 10 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's not gonna do that. But say it's fourth quarter, Patriots are up by 6. They need a first down, 3rd and 4. Seahawks are really bringing it. You just bring Danny Amendola a quick sit route, first down, game's over. It could be a little play like that. And not only that, but like I said earlier, in the return game, he's been really good setting up the Patriots in solid field position, putting him in a good spot against a really good defense like this. I could see him having like a 5-6 catch game, maybe like a touchdown. He had one against Baltimore, 2 against Baltimore, and having a couple of big kick returns that put him in good field position. So I'm going to go Danny Amendola.
Right on. Those are great. Those are a couple great picks. I really like that too. I'm glad that you guys gave me those two because I think that those are definitely two guys that nobody's talking about going into the Super Bowl that are more than capable of making a big impact on this game. Kind of decision time right now. I've got Charles's pick and I've got Jake Arthur here and Joseph Sorrow. And Joseph, we're going to start with you, and I want you to give us kind of a final thought of what you think is going to happen in this game from either side, both sides, and then let's have your pick.
All right. Well, I think that this game's going to be close for the first 2.5 quarters, maybe by the end of the third quarter. But I think that there's going to be a point where one team just eventually pulls away. I think it's going to come down to an unknown hero.
Let me ask you this first, Jake. Joseph, sorry. Did anybody's argument in this broadcast change your opinion on who was going to win the game? Don't tell me who, but I'm curious about that.
No.
Okay, go on. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
No.
you.
I think that Seattle's defense is unstoppable at times, but I think that the Patriots are going to come out with some things that people aren't even expecting. I think you might even see Gronkowski in the backfield. I think there's going to be all types of crazy formations and plays, and I think that Seattle is just, they know that they're going to have to give Seattle something that they're not even dreaming of, because if they just go there and just try and run it down their throat or just try and throw 4 wide out there, Seattle's just going to be sitting back. So really what I see here is Danny Amendola is going to be the difference maker. I think that he's going to just come through. I don't know why. When he was on the St. Louis Rams, he used to kill the 49ers, and then he would get hurt, and you would never see him again for the rest of the season. So I think Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are just sick of losing in the Super Bowl. I think they're sick of catching a bad beat, and I actually think that they're going to pull away with a double-digit victory. I think it's going to be about 35-21 game for the Patriots.
Wow.
I think that Seattle's problem, and it's going to be a big thing in the offseason, is that they're going to realize that their offense just came a little short. Revis Island is going to shut down Baldwin. I don't think Ricardo Lockett, the 49ers cast-off, is going to be enough juice for Russell Wilson. I think they're going to spy Russell Wilson. They know Marshawn Lynch, what he's going to do. I think New England's going to be ready for it.
Okay, Jake Arthur. So we got Joseph picking the Pats. Jake, where are you at? And before you answer, did anybody change your mind with their argument tonight?
Well, no one changed my mind, and I know a day or so ago I told you Seattle, but the more I've analyzed it and just tossed it over in my head, the matchup just really favors New England. I don't see how Seattle's going to be able to pass the ball against New England. And I've just seen Russell Wilson get sacked too many times, and Rob Ninkovich is really underrated, and then of course you got Chandler Jones over there. Jamie Collins, Matt, we saw what he did to the Colts in the last year's playoffs. I mean, I think it could be a close one. I originally figured it would be a lot like their 2012 game, but this time I think I'm going to give it to New England, and that really hurts to say. Yeah.
That's good. I'm gonna go ahead and first of all, I'm gonna say no, nobody changed my mind. Um, but it did give me more context in my own head of where I'm gonna go. And basically this is, and like I said at the start of the show, this is the two best teams in the NFL, and I don't see anybody that can tell me necessarily an argument of otherwise. You've got a possible perennial defense in the Seahawks that do not give up. And one of my own critiques on Sherman, he gets playing the Niners or just whoever. He gets a lot of balls thrown directly to him. He doesn't have to fight a lot for them. But on the other side of that, I mean, thinking why was the ball thrown directly to him? The ball was thrown directly to him because he got the receiver off his route, and then the receiver had no idea where to go after that, and so and so didn't have time to reevaluate the route and threw the ball directly to him. So whether or not he's actually fighting for the ball with another receiver, he's definitely affecting the play and the pass in any way. That secondary is second to none. It's a team that can go single high all game long and dominate you both in the run game and in coverage. When it comes to my differentials for a close game, I think that it favors the Pats. And why do I think it favors the Pats? There's a matchup everywhere. It's almost identical all the way throughout each team. I think it's a fantastic matchup in the secondary. Both secondaries are great. I think the Pats have the edge in special teams, as I led into a little bit earlier. But ultimately, you've got a running back, and like Jake Mackey pointed out, that it's very similar between Marshawn and Blunt. A lot of similarities there between the two, the running styles and so on and so forth. Pats may have a bit of an edge in the offensive line and on the defensive line as well, but you've got two great sets of linebackers. You've got two quarterbacks, both Super Bowl champions now. And I think if this game stays close through halftime, I think the Pats win. On the other hand, if it doesn't, and the Seahawks gain a bit of an edge, I think that you're going to see a lot of Tom Brady with seven-step drops, similar to what he did in the divisional round against Baltimore when they had to come back, and he's going to have to resort to throwing the ball a lot. Is that good or bad? Against this defense, that's awful. You have to have a run game against the Seahawks, and if they don't have it, they're going to get chewed up and spit out. However, I tend to think this is going to be a close game, so I'm giving it to the Pats, and I'm going to do that because I think uh, comparing wide receiver groups, LaFell, Edelman, and Amendola, among others, with Gronk, up the seam, that is a little taller of an order than you might think just going off of name recognition. At the same time, Baldwin and Curse and their crew, Wilson, especially the tight end as well, he's a heck of a ball player. This is going to be an epic Super Bowl that I absolutely hate. And I have to root against the Pats because I hate the Pats. But I have to flip a coin on what's more important to me. I have to sit here and listen to these garbage Russell Wilson arguments with Andrew Luck for the next 15 years, or I have to deal with Tom Brady and the Pats having another Super Bowl under their belt. It's really not a good position for me to be in. So, but I do have to, and I hate myself for it, but I have to go with the Pats on this one. And that, as of now, and then Charles also picked the Pats. So we have a bit of a sweep tonight. Ken, I'm sorry, my brother. don't take it personal. You made your argument. You made the right argument. It's just that this is a game I think is a fantastic matchup that we're not going to see too often, and I think the end result's going to show it. I don't think that we see anything more than a 3 point game, and I wouldn't be a darn bit surprised if we see a 19-13 final score. I mean, something if it stays that low, then I obviously see a little more than a 3 point difference. But man, if this thing gets into the 20s, it's going to be 27, 24, 24, 21, 26, 23. You just don't know. It's going to be insane. And is there any closing comments from anybody in the panel or either one of our representatives for the Super Bowl before we head off?
I'll go first. I respect all your picks, fairly smart picks, but I'd say going with the Seahawks is a little bit smarter. But Jake, I liked all your points. Loved discussing with you. Loved all the questions. So we'll just see the better team come out Sunday night, and then maybe we'll all get back together and have a fun little discussion about the Hawks.
Hey, that'll work. I have absolutely no. See, this is one of the good games, though. I have no problem talking bad about either one of you. So, once it gets to the end result, whoever wins wins, and we'll all just jump on the bandwagon and go after it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, I love everyone's picks, obviously, but like, I think you all kind of had. I could kind of tell this game. If you could, you could be completely wrong because this game could go either way. Like, really, it's like a coin flip. You see Vegas and say it could be a split. Like, no one knows with this game. It's like even myself as a Patriots fan, I know the Patriots could very easily lose this game because the Seahawks have been there before. The Patriots have been there before. Both great coaches, both really good Super Bowl champion quarterbacks, both really good. It's just both teams it's like meeting fire with fire. It's going to be a really good game, and I'm excited and obviously insanely nervous for it.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully we're back here next week. I'm wearing a Super Bowl champion shirt. Haven't got one in a while.
Jake, Arthur, or Joseph? Either one of you got anything while we close?
Yeah, I mean, Jake just touched on it. He said it's a toss-up, and he's right. I mean, my heart and my gut says Seattle, but then when I start to think about it, I say New England. But really, I just think this is one of those games where it would be nice where Bane just walks onto the field and does this thing.
Right. This is and it is. It's those one of those matchups where this could be this could be 12-9 a kicker's duel.
Yeah, there's gonna be a ton of field goals. I'm
I
already
mean,
predicting that.
yeah, that could be insane. That would be like both in the end, that would be like the most annoying Super Bowl in history, and it could also end up being like what's talked about as the biggest defensive battle in Super Bowl history, and it just either way, there are so many different storylines and so many ways this could go. What are your thoughts, Joseph? While we close,
The biggest thought is that at the end of the day, if the score is 35-10 Seattle or 35-10 the Patriots, I don't think anybody would be surprised. I think
right,
it's going to be a close game and a good game, but at the same time, if one team were below the other team out, I mean, they're both just that good.
right,
But I
and
think
that's why they're here. You're right.
Seattle, I think they just, they escaped it last week versus Green Bay. And does that mean that they're going to play sloppy again and the Patriots aren't going to let them escape? Or does that mean that they said, hey, we really got to tighten up here and we can't fall behind to the Patriots? We're going to see.
Yep, and you're right, and that's why these two are here because they both have the capabilities of blowing people out. Um, you get Marshawn Lynch running 150 yards on you, scoring 3 touchdowns on the ground. You make a team one dimensional, and they have to pass against you to catch up, and that type of defense ends up stalling everybody out, and then that's how they win by 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then just vice versa. The Pats themselves, can beat you in several different ways. Like I'm still waiting on this great special teams game from the Pats. I thought it was going to be last week, but they clearly didn't need it. Or 2 weeks ago, sorry, in the AFC Championship game. Um, they can beat you, especially on special teams, whether it's Edelman or Amendola for that matter as well. Both crafty. LaFell's come into his own as a receiver. They could leave Gronk basically with nothing in the first half and still have the lead or control the game. So it's going to be one for the ages, I think, and I certainly hope it is. I'd much rather see a super close game that has everybody begging for the next 3 seconds to for somebody to score than going to watching a 35 to 10 blowout by either team. So with that, we've got the panel picking all paths tonight, and I don't know if anybody was really happy about it except Jake Mackey. But that's the way it goes sometimes when you get into thinking yourself through things and then overthinking things as well. So I'd like to thank everybody: Jake Arthur, Jake Mackey, Joseph Foria, and Ken Kazarowski, and also thanks to Charles Walrig, who was with us earlier. Appreciate all you guys coming on. Good show, good stuff. Great answers from our representatives in the Super Bowl, and good luck to both of you. I know that your blood pressure will be high Sunday all day long, so good luck to you. And thank you for watching Spot Radio. We appreciate it, and come back and check us out next time.